Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us for today's live webinar on topic Stop Preparing for Audit, Start Being Prepared by LiveQC Tools. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I'm Santoshi and I'll be the host for today's webinar. So before starting, we have few housekeeping updates. All participants' microphones are muted and cameras turned off to maintain proper bandwidth. So if you have any questions or clarifications, you can post them in the chat box. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end where we'll address all your questions. Now let's get started. In today's competitive manufacturing environment, audits are no longer occasional events. They are continuous business realities. Yet many organizations still operate in audit preparation mode, scrambling for documentation, correcting records and gathering evidence only when an audit is approaching. But here is the real question is, why prepare for audits when you can always be prepared? This is where LiveQC Tools transform the game. In simple words, LiveQC Tools help you to move from reactive audit preparation to proactive audit confidence. About Aegis and LiveQC Tools. Since 1993, Aegis India has been delivering engineering excellence and digital transformation solutions to industries across India. With decades of expertise in engineering services, digital quality system and manufacturing transformation, Aegis has consistently helped business improve performance through innovation and practical solutions. Built on this strong foundation, LiveQC Tools was developed by a team of experts to simplify and strengthen quality management system for modern industries. Our mission is to help organizations take control of quality, compliance and continuous improvement. Today's session is especially important for organizations looking to overcome common audit challenges. With LiveQC Tools, organization can centralize and streamline these activities into one digital platform. And now it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Mr. Vishnu Sivan, Assistant Manager, with extensive expertise in quality system, compliance process, and practical implementation strategies. Vishnu sir will walk us through how LiveQC Tools can help your organization stop preparing for audits and start being prepared. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Santoshi. A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. The topic that we are going to discuss today is something every manufacturing organization experiences regularly: audits. So now let me start with a simple thought. In most of the companies, audits are not just like an activity, they become an event that brings pressure, urgency, and a lot of last minute efforts. But here is the real question that I want you to think about throughout this session. Are audits supposed to be stressful, or are they supposed to be a routine action? Because ideally, an audit should just be a reflection of how your system works every day, not something you prepare for separately. And that is exactly what we are going to explore today. So how to move from preparing for audits to actually being prepared all the time. So before we get into the topic, let me quickly introduce myself. I am Vishnu Shivan. I'm working as Assistant Manager in Engineering Services Division of Aegis India, where I primarily handle design for quality activities and also providing a technical solution for LiveQC Tools. So let me quickly walk you through the agenda for today. So we'll start by looking at the current audit practices and the common challenges faced by most of the organization. Then we will move into the realistic scenario, what typically happens before an audit, so that we can relate to actual situations. After that, we will understand what auditors are really looking for, which is often different from what we assume. And this will lead us into a key mindset shift from preparing from audits to being truly prepared. Then I'll show how a system-driven approach using LiveQC Tools helps achieve continuous audit readiness. And finally, we will wrap up with the key takeaways and open discussion. So before we go deeper into the topic, I just want to understand your current practice. So here is a quick question for all of you. When do you typically start preparing the audits, or when do you typically start preparing for audits? You can check your chat box available in the session. There you can see the active poll with the same questions and options. You can choose one of these options like 1 week before, 2 weeks before, or 1 month before, or only after audit is announced. So we shall wait for 15 seconds for this polling, and I shall activate the timer for that. So kindly update your feedback in the chat box itself. So this is very interesting. You can see that in the chat box, you can see the direct responses from here. Usually what we'll be seeing is, so this is basically what we are getting is from different perspective. Mostly what we'll be seeing is majority on first 1 week or 2 weeks category. So very few say that we are always ready, and sometimes only after audit is announced. So that's completely normal because most organizations operate in reactive audit mode. So we don't prepare continuously. We prepare when the audit comes. And that's exactly the gap we are going to address today. But the goal is to not to prepare better. The goal is to eliminate the need for preparation itself. So now let's talk about what typically happens in most organizations before an audit, not theoretically, but practically. And based on our interaction with the multiple industries and discussion with the quality teams, production teams, and management across different organizations, these are some of the very common patterns we consistently observe during this audit time. And so, what I'm going to share now is not an assumption, it is actually drawn from real, repeated experience across different companies. So the moment an audit is announced, the first reaction is not confidence, right? It is coordination. And people start reaching out different departments like, do we have this document or is this updated? Who has the latest version? The first problem begins document chasing. Then comes the next one, that is last minute preparation and the updation and corrections. So we'll open FMEA, control plans are reviewed, inspection records are checked, and suddenly we realize that something is missing, something is outdated, something is inconsistent. Now this leads to the third issue, cross department confusion. Quality is asking for production is asking maintenance, stores is checking records, everyone is working, but not in a synchronized way. And finally, high stress and pressure. Not because the audit is difficult, but because the system is actually not ready. So what we see here is a very important. The effort is not going to improve the system. It is going into managing the audit. That is the fundamental problem. Let's make this even more real for you. Let's step into a situation that is actually happening in many companies. Okay, so I just want you to imagine a company, just namely, we can say that is access quality system. So this is a typical manufacturing organization. They have a proper quality team. Then what they're having is a defined process for all of their activities. Then a documentation system, a proper documentation systems, and regular production operations. This is how they are having. So in fact, on paper, everything looks fine. Now, here is the important part. As I walk you through this story, I just want you to relate this to your own organization, because what we are going to see next is not an unique solution or a unique situation. It is something that happens in many companies almost every audit cycle. So let us go to this company 1 day before or 1 day before the audit. Now imagine this is 1 day before the audit. We already mentioned that this is 1 day before the audit. So audit is scheduled for tomorrow's morning, right? Everything should be ideally ready, right? But what is actually happening? The quality team is under pressure. Phones are ringing, messages are coming in. Everyone is trying to ensure that all the things are in place. And at the same time, management is asking different questions, or they're asking for updates. Are we ready? Is everything closed? Any gaps? And the answer is usually yes, yes, almost ready. Just a few things are pending. Now, this is where things become critical. Actually, preparation is happening. Preparation is actually happening, but it is happening now, not over the last few weeks, not as a part of daily work, but all concentrated into this one day. And when preparation is compressed like this, errors, gaps, and inconsistencies are bound to appear. So, what looks like a preparation is actually a race against time. But this is just the beginning. On the surface, everything looked under control, right? But when we open the actual system, we start seeing the gaps. First, let us open the FMEA, failure mode effects analysis document. You can see that the last update was months ago. Lot of process change have happened, but the risks were not revised properly. Next, if you are going for this control plan, it exists, but it doesn't fully match the current process. Some of the controls are outdated, some of them are missing. Then comes the next one, that is inspection records. Some are complete, some are partially filled, some are filled just before the audit. And finally, calibration records. So they exist, but they are not readily accessible. People are searching folders, emails, files, trying to prove that everything is in control. Now, look at this carefully. All systems are present, but they are not aligned, they are not updated, they are not connected. All, and this is the real issue. It is not about missing system. It's about disconnected system. And when systems are actually not aligned, what happens next is inevitable. Everyone is firefighting. It turns into organization-wide firefighting. First, we know that quality team, they are coordinating everything, calling departments, checking records, trying to ensure compliance. But instead of focusing on quality, they are managing data collection. The next one, production team, they are busy updating inspection records, sometimes filling missing entries, sometimes correcting data, all under time pressure. Then documentation team. They are trying to locate the documents, material certificates, incoming inspection reports, supplier records, searching across systems, folders, emails, and finally stores or the maintenance team. So they are actually verifying the calibration status, checking whether all instruments are valid, looking for certificates, something, or sometimes even rushing for last minute calibration confirmation. So now observe this carefully. Everyone is working, but no one is working in sync. And this is where the biggest risk comes in: inconsistency. Different data, different versions, different answers. And when an auditor asks a question, the system doesn't respond. People respond. And that is the weak position to be in. Let us ask a more important question. Okay. Why does this happen every single audit? Because this is not a one-time issue. This repeats audit after audit. And the reason is not lack of the effort. The actual reason is structural. Okay, let's break it down. The first, the system exists. Are they connected? FME is separate, control plan is separate, inspection data is separate, now single flow. And the second one, data exists, but it is not reliable in real time. We update it, but not continuously. We trust it, but not fully. Process exists, but they are not consistently followed. We know what to do, right? But execution depends on situation, people, urgency, and finally, ownership exists. But it is not clearly tracked. Who updated what? Who closed what? Who verified what? Not always clear. So when audit comes, all these small gaps visible to or visible at once. And that is why audit becomes stressful. Not because of the audit, but because of the accumulated system gaps. Now, let's shift our perspective. Let's understand what the auditor is actually looking for. So many times we assume that auditors are checking documents, right? But in reality, auditors are verifying system behavior. So let's understand what they actually look for. Firstly, traceability. If a part is produced, can you trace its process, its inspection, its records, its issue from start to end? The second is consistency. What is written in your FMEA? What is defined in your control plan? What is actually happening on the shop floor? All three should match. Third one, real-time and reliable data. No data created yesterday, we know that. No data created before the audit, but data that reflects actual operations. And finally, closed loop actions. If a problem occurs, was it captured? Was root cause identified? Was action taken? Was effectiveness verified? This complete cycle is what auditors focus on. So if you look carefully, auditors are not looking for perfection, they are looking for control. And this brings us to a very important realization. This is one of the most important key takeaways for this today's session. So auditors don't audit documents, they audit system behavior. What does that mean? It means that having documents is not enough. Even having updated documents is not enough, because an auditor will always try to connect what is written with what is being done, with what is recorded. If there is a mismatch, that's where the observation comes. So the real question is not, do we have documents? So the real question is our system behaving the same way every day? And if your system is behaving correctly every day, then audit becomes just a validation, not a preparation exercise. Now, based on everything we have discussed so far, let's clearly differentiate two different approaches. So preparing for audit versus preparing for being prepared for audit, because these are not the same. Let's start with the first one. So preparing for audit. So this is what most organizations do. It is a reactive approach. Audit is announced, then preparation starts. That we have seen in the poll also. Updates happen at the last minute. Documents are checked just before the audit, and the entire system becomes person dependent. You rely on individuals to provide data, explain situation, and the fill gaps, and naturally this leads to stress. Now let's look at the other side. Being prepared. Okay, so this is completely a different mindset. Here the system is proactive. Data is updated continuously. Processes are followed as a part of a daily work. It is not dependent on individuals. It is a system driven, which means that even if a person is not available, the data is still available. And because of this, organization operates in a state of control. No panic, no last minute rush, just confidence. So the difference is not in effort, it is in approach. So one is event based, the other is system based. And the goal is very clear here. We need to move from preparing to being prepared. So now the question becomes, how do we actually move to this being prepared state? And the common assumption is we need to work harder. We need to check more. We need to prepare better, but that's not the solution. Being prepared is not achieved by effort. It is achieved by system design. So let me explain this very clearly. Okay. So if your system is designed in a way where the data is captured at the right time. Okay. The next one, the process are followed as a part of daily work. Then records are automatically available. Actions are tracked and closed. If then you don't need a separate audit preparation because your system itself is always ready. Okay. And this is where a system driven approach becomes important. Not isolated tools, no separated documents, but a connected quality system. So this is exactly what we are going to achieving through LiveQC tools. Now, I want you to be very clear here. This is not about introducing a software. This is about enabling a way of working, a system where audit readiness becomes a natural outcome of daily operations. So let's go back to our story. That is, let's see how this changes the situation. Let's revisit the same company, that is our access quality system, but now with a different approach. So here we have the same company, access quality system, same people, the same format. Now here you can see that processes are defined and linked. FMEA, control plan are not separate documents. They are connected. So when something changes in one place, it reflects across the system. So data is captured in real time, not at the end of the day, not before the audit, but during actual operation. The third one, records are centrally available. No needs of search across the folders, emails, or different system. Everything is accessible from a single place. And finally, actions are tracked systematically. If an issue occurs, it is captured, it is assigned, it is tracked, and it is verified. Now, notice something important. The work being done is not more. It is just better organized. And because of that, system is always in a ready state. Now, let's see how this system actually supports audit readiness. Let's now connect the system approach directly to our audit requirements. So we'll start with the audit process itself. And in most of the organization, audit planning is often basic. Schedules are created, checklists may exist, but execution and tracking are not always structured. Now let's see how a system-driven approach changes this. Okay, audits are not triggered reactively, so they are defined in advance, like internal audits or process audits or supplier audits. And then instead of using different formats each time, checklists are predefined and consistent. So this ensures no missed checkpoints, uniform audit coverages, etc. Then along with the scheduling audits, another important aspect is meeting, fixing, and coordination. So in many organizations, this is handled through emails, calls, or manual follow-ups, which often leads to misread communication, rescheduling confusion, lack of clarity on who is attending. So in system-driven approach, audit means are planned and aligned with the system itself. Participants are defined, timelines are fixed, notifications are triggered. So everyone involved know when the audit is happening, who is involved, and what is expected without repeated any follow-up. So during the audit, observations are directly captured into the system, not written separately and entered here, but recorded as they happen. You can directly see from this video itself, you can directly see that specific auditor is updating his findings in the provision where we have provided, so that you don't have to worry about what update that have been given for the specific area, because all the records are being done instantaneously. And another important aspect during audit is audit scoring, because audits are not just about identifying issues, they are also about evaluating performance. In many cases, scoring is done manually and insights are not easily visible. So here in a structured system, scoring is built into the audit process. Each checkpoint can be evaluated. Scores are calculated automatically. Performance trends can be easily analyzed over here. This helps actually identifying the weak areas, tracking improvements over the time, and supporting management division. So audit is not just a compliance activity, it becomes a performance measurement tool. And finally, non-conformity tracking. If an issue is found, it is logged immediately, it is categorized, and it is linked to further action. Now, when all of this is managed within a system, audit is no longer an isolated activity. It becomes a part of overall quality process, and this entire capability is enabled through live audit. But audit is not just about conducting audits, it is about what supports the audit. Traceability and records management. Now let's move on. One of the most important expectation from any audit, traceability, right? So this is where many organizations struggle, not because data is missing, but because data is not easily traceable. Let's understand what auditors typically do. They don't just check a document, they try to follow a trail. Okay. So here you can see that they may pick one part. Simply, you can say that one specific part is over here, one part, then ask, where is the inspection record? Okay. Then what process has been followed? What was the process followed? What was the specification? Were there any issue? All these details they will ask. Now, if your system is not connected, you start searching different folders, different files, different departments, but in a system driven approach, everything is centrally managed. And this entire traceability is the backbone which is enabled through records and parts management. Now let's move on to the next critical aspect, that is process alignment. So this is where auditors typically go deeper. So they don't just check whether FME exists, they check whether it is actually connected to our process. Let's break this down. First, the risk identified and structured through FMEA. You define what can go wrong, why it can go wrong, what is the actual impact, but identifying risk is the first step. The next one, controls defined and applied. That is, through the control plan, you define what needs to be controlled, how it is controlled, at what stage it is controlled. Now, here is actually where most issues happens. Lack of alignment. So FMES says one thing, control plan says another, actual process does something else, and this mismatch is immediately visible to auditors. So in a system-driven approach, FME and the control plan are not separated documents, they are connected. So risks are directly linked to the controls. Changes in process reflect in both, and updates are consistent. And this ensures that what you planned, what you control, what you execute, all are aligned. And this alignment builds credibility during audits. Now, once processes are defined and aligned, the next one is planning to actual execution on the shop floor, because this is where auditors verify, is your system really working or just documented? So the key focus here is this one. So inspection data is entered directly into the system at the time of inspection, not after, not before audit, but during the actual operation. Second, each measurement is linked to specific drawing characteristics, defined requirements. So there is no ambiguity, right? The third one, FAIR, first article inspection report. All these are generated systematically with proper structure and traceability, and most importantly, real-time, error-free data capture. Because data is captured at source, no backdated entries, no manual errors, no confusion during the audit. So when an auditor checks inspection data, you are not explaining, you are showing, and this builds strong confidence. Now, even with a strong process and data, issues are also inevitable. So now let's talk about something very important, problems. Because no system is perfect, right? Issues will occur, defects will happen, but here what auditors really evaluate. Not whether problem exists, but how you handle them. Let's break down. First, non-conformity capture. When an issue occurs, is it recorded properly? Is it classified correctly? Or is it handled informally? The next one is root cause analysis. Do we just fix the issue? Or do we understand why is it happened? All these details. Corrective and preventive actions. Are actions defined clearly? Are responsibilities assigned? Are timelines set? And most importantly, effectiveness and verification. After implementing actions, do we verify whether the issue is actually resolved, whether it is prevented from recurring? Now, this entire flow, NC, RCA, CAPA, effectiveness, this is like a system-driven approach. So everything is linked. Issue is captured, root cause is recorded, actions are assigned, progress is tracked, effectiveness is verified. So when an auditor ask, show me how you handled this issue. You don't explain, you demonstrate a complete system, and that builds strong audit confidence. Now, let's look at the final layer, supporting system. Because even if your processes are strong, audit readiness depends on your supporting controls. Here you can see that this is asset management and calibration tracking, because all measuring instruments must be calibrated, valid, traceable. During audit, if an instrument is out of calibration, it directly impacts the data credibility. So having a system that tracks calibration schedule, status, records is very much critical. And second, task assignment and accountability. So when actions are properly defined, they must be assigned, tracked, closed. That is, it should not have any open loops, no missed responsibilities. And finally, notifications and trigger settings. So one of the biggest reason for this added gaps is missed actions. With automated notifications, reminders are generated, deadlines or tracked, escalations can happen. So the system itself ensures that nothing is forgotten. Now, when all these supporting systems are in place, your entire quality system becomes stronger. Okay, we have seen a lot of details. Now let's go back to our story one final time. Okay, again, the same access quality system, same company, same people, same audit, but this time the outcome is completely different. Okay, this is audit day, the same audit day, it is audit day. The auditor arrives, and instead of tension, there is clarity. First one, data is readily available. The auditor asks for records, inspection data, process details, response is immediate, no searching, no confusion, right? Next one, the team is very confident and aligned. Quality, production, maintenance, everyone is on the same page, not because they have prepared a study, but because they work this way every day. The next is audit flows smoothly. Here, the questions are answered with clarity, not based on memory, not based on assumptions, but based on system data. And finally, the audit flows smoothly. No interruptions, no last minute corrections, no stress. Now observe the difference carefully. The audit has not become easier. The system has become stronger. And because of that, audit becomes just another routine activity. So this is what is meant to be audit ready. Okay. So let's summarize what we have discussed today. First, audit stress is a system issue, not an audit issue. Okay. So what we experience during audits, it is a reflection of how our system operates daily. The second one, it is not about having documents, it's about consistency between what is defined, what is executed, what is recorded. And third one, preparing happens when audit is near. That is, readiness happens when system is designed correctly. Correct. Then fourth one, connected process ensure traceability and the control. When systems are integrated, data flows seamlessly. We know that traceability becomes very easy and the control becomes visible. And finally, audit readiness is a result of daily discipline, not a one-time effort, but a continuous way of working. So if you take one message from today, don't focus on preparing for audits, focus on building a system that is always prepared. So let me close this with a one final thought. If you need to prepare for an audit, your system is not ready. And on the other hand, if your system is ready, the audit becomes just another routine activity. So what we have discussed today is not about the tools alone. It's about a shift in approach from reactive to proactive, disconnected to connected, person dependent to system driven. And when this shift happens, audit readiness becomes a natural outcome, not a separate effort. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your time and participation, and hope this session give you a clear perspective on how to move towards a more structured and audit ready system.